Hello and welcome to Victoria's Cantina, where today we're having a look at the Hasbro Star Wars The Black Series 40th Anniversary The Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader 6-inch scale action figure. I came across the entire wave at my local Target and was very excited because even though this wave is comprised primarily of repacks, there are a couple figures in the wave that have been updated and changed, including this version of Darth Vader, which is based on his appearance in The Empire Strikes Back. Now, I know some of you are saying, what's the difference, one Vader to another? There's actually a bit of change in his costume from one episode to the other, and if you're somebody like me who's very much into, tracking those changes in the films, then I think you're going to need the figures as well. Especially if you're a Darth Vader fangirl like I am. Maybe not quite on the level of Kylo Ren, but I'm getting there. Let's start with the most obvious. So this is Wave 3 of the 40th Anniversary Black Series line for The Empire Strikes Back. Gorgeous vintage card back. I think they look awesome. They are very hard for me to display personally because they are so big. And I use the Figure Shield clamshells to protect them in, so I don't really display them. Even though I collect them, I don't display them on card. Some of them I do need to open, like this one here, because it is different. And I really like the look. Some people are saying, why is A New Hope Darth Vader on there? Well, I mean, they're recreating the look from A New Hope. It's not Hasbro being lazy necessarily. It's that this is what the card back looked like for The Empire Strikes Back. It had that photo. At the back, you can see the other figures that make up this wave. As far as what I actually picked up, I got Boba Fett, I got the Snowtrooper, which is supposed to be a little bit different from the original, so I went ahead and grabbed it. And of course, Darth Vader. I passed on Chewie because he just came out in the Amazon 2-pack with C-3PO. And of course, the Luke Skywalker Dagobah also just came out with Yoda. Commemorate the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back with figures from the Black Series featuring classic design and packaging. There is the UPC right there. I was really stoked to find these because at my local Target, I never find anything new. Like never. And the fact that these are on the pegs really excited me. So this is super cool. All right, I'm going to take a moment to get Darth Vader out of the packaging. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at Lord Vader. Alright, so here's the Dark Lord of the Sith himself out of the packaging. When Hasbro first solicited the press images of this figure, I thought it was basically the same Vader we had before, minus some minor changes in paint and a couple details like the gloves. And truth be told, it's actually pretty much a brand new figure except for the legs. Anything from the waist down seems to be reused, but anything from the waist up above the belt is brand new. Really interesting stuff. Proportionally speaking, the figure looks really nice, and we will go over those details in just a moment. But looking at the figure, he looks really good. I'm really happy with the aesthetic here. The proportions look very natural. We've never really gotten like the perfect 6-inch Darth Vader figure. Some of them come close to being like definitive, but they never quite get there, whether it's Hasbro, whether it's SH Figuarts, whether it's Mafex. There's good things about a lot of these Vaders, but none of them have been perfect so far. And I think from the side, he looks really good. Like just the way the cape is draping. It seems to be essentially the same cape we got before. Again, we will do some comparisons to the previous release in just a bit, but it just looks like he's kind of gliding along, very reminiscent to what you actually see in The Empire Strikes Back. Like just the essence of the figure screams Darth Vader, and I feel like that's kind of hard for Hasbro to capture. Or like I was saying, really with any company. But just so far, this figure seems to come pretty close in terms of like capturing the spirit of Darth Vader as he appears in these classic trilogy films. So I can tell you right now that he's probably not going to look as good on camera as he does in person. Part of that has to do with lighting. Part of that has to do with the fact that it's mostly blacks and silvers that comprise the outfit. And it's just really a hard figure to pick up on camera. But I will say that this helmet looks freaking excellent. I am very critical of Darth Vader figures. I've done videos comparing a bunch of them and trying to figure out what's the best one. And I mean, you guys know, if you've been following for any length of time, I really go all in on Darth Vader, and I'm very picky about, all the little details. And I really like what I'm seeing. I mean, there's a few little like QC issues here and there. You might be able to see some scratching like right there on the helmet and a little bit of scuffing. But that aside, this helmet, it looks awesome. What an awesome looking helmet. Looks very screen accurate to what we see in The Empire Strikes Back. And again, it's brand new. The helmet is zero reuse from the A New Hope figure from a few years back. And you will notice that it does share some of the details that you see with the A New Hope Vaders, such as the helmet being a little bit asymmetrical. That was kind of a thing with Vader in the classic trilogy. He never had a fully symmetrical helmet until Revenge of the Sith. That is still true here. There is still a little bit of silver paint right there on his left, let's call it a cheek, compared to the right cheek. The A New Hope figure had that, but it is a brand new helmet. And you also see there's a little bit of texture sculpted onto the dome. It's not completely smooth. If you run your finger over it, you can feel a little bit of texture to it, which is interesting. And I think that actually helps quite a bit when you're trying to get him on camera, because if it was just glossy plastic, you wouldn't see the details quite as well. So I'm glad they did that. So you have the black eyes, they're like really deep black. And then it gets a little bit lighter, like around the face parts of the helmet. Of course, you have some silver details right there on the grill, and some silver details on the neck piece as well, the neck part of the helmet. So that is pretty nice to see. Same thing that we had on the New Hope Vader, as far as the very last version that just came in the red and black box. As far as the chest armor right here, it's sculpted very nicely. It's painted very nicely. There's a little bit of almost like the hint of a metallic flake that you have here on the chest armor. And of course, you get some black paint. This is also a brand new piece compared to the previous version. And then you got his shoulder pads right there. There is the back part of the armor. So you got those two pieces right there. And basically just black right here. Now the arms are interesting. Like I said, from the top of the belt up, it's brand new. The arms look on the surface to be the same arms, but when you actually inspect them pretty closely to the previous release, they're brand new. They've done some different things here. The sculpt is pretty similar, but the arms are in fact completely a brand new sculpt. And that is most evident back here at the elbow, where you can no longer see the joint that was visible on the A New Hope release. Chest box has been resculpted. The dimensions are a little bit different. You can see right here on his chest, some straps have been sculpted there to the armor, holding it in place, as far as the aesthetic goes anyway. And then the belt seems to be reused from that previous release. And you can see, here on the back, it does hold his inner robes in place. The belt looks pretty nice and painted detail there. And the gloves are also different. In A New Hope, he had different stripes on the gloves. So those had horizontal stripes. Now he's got the vertical stripes, which is film accurate. His cod piece right here is the same that we had before, and that is actually connected to the belt piece. And then here at the legs, these are completely reused from the previous figure. So they still look good. I still think this Vader has the nicest looking bodysuit compared to any of the other releases, even like the SH Figure Arts or the Mayfax. And that is still true here. There's his backside. There are his boots. Complete reuse from the previous release. Look here at the bottom. He's got those peg holes. Let's go ahead and talk articulation. So here at the head, you get actually a pretty nice joint. It goes down a little bit. You can get it to look up. It's not too bad. It's better than a lot of Vader figures. Side to side, you can't really tilt it. I mean, ever so slightly, but there's not going to be a whole lot of tilt there. Here at the shoulders, you have an insert molded joint, and you can get them out. Do note, though, that because of his shoulder pads, there is going to be some bumping, so you're not going to be able to get it in all the way. At least on my figure, you can't get it out all the way. You do rotate them, of course. You do have insert molded joints here at the elbows. Look at the movement there. That is awesome. Really good movement for the elbow joints on this figure. So that is something that is an improvement. Here at the wrists, you're going to get it to go forward and backwards. And then here at the left wrist, same thing. So it's going to move forward and backwards as well. We do have a ball hinge here at the torso, so you get some okay movement out of that. Not the greatest. The hips are the same as before, so he goes about that much in terms of his Sith split. And then they go forward basically all the way, but you can see his legs do separate a bit because of the cod piece when you pose him that way. We do have cuts at both of the thighs. We still have double bends here at the knees, so pretty good movement there. You get him to move all the way back. And then here at the ankles, Same as before. So we got ankle pivot like that. You go forward and back. It's actually some really nice movement. One of the issues I had with the previous Vader from A New Hope was that the hips would often become very loose and the figure would fall on the shelf. It still seems to be a bit of an issue here. Maybe not as bad, but there is still a little bit of looseness here, as you can see right there at the hip. So I do find that a bit disappointing. Here's Darth Vader's lightsaber. Believe it or not, this is a completely brand new sculpt. It's not just a repack of the lightsaber that came with the A New Hope Darth Vader. Not only that, but if you guys watched my Anakin Skywalker Padawan review, then you know that I was disappointed that they gave that figure the A New Hope Vader lightsaber, which, you know, close maybe, but not really accurate, because even with that figure, it wasn't accurate to the film. So this is brand new. The proportions, it's been slimmed down a little bit. And it is accurate to The Empire Strikes Back, which I'm very happy about. Some painted details on there, and then you have this nice red blade there. So you can separate it right here. You just twist it out, comes out pretty easily. Not as difficult as a lot of the lightsabers that we're getting lately. And as with before, there is a little hook still on the belt, so you can hang it just like that. And we still have the same issue of it being a rubbery sort of hanger, so you know, you kind of got to be careful. It's if you move it around too much, it can fall off. Just do a little comparison here. At the top, I have the New Hope Darth Vader lightsaber. At the bottom, I have the Empire Strikes Back Vader lightsaber. You can see the Empire one's been slimmed down a little bit. It's easier for him to hold. And yeah, very similar. Unless you're really looking at the differences, you might not even know it's a different sculpt. But in fact, it is. And the lightsaber blade isn't quite as chunky this time around, which I think is a good improvement. And because of the updates in the elbow articulation, you are able to get him to hold the lightsaber with two hands with relative ease. The problem is that the hands have been sculpted so hard. Like, you need Superman hands to flex them. I cannot flex them. I feel like I'm going to break a nail. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't get them to flex one bit. They won't even budge. So it's really hard for me to open them wide enough to get the hands around the lightsaber hilt. I got that one in. I was able to just kind of slide it in with some pressure. But this one I cannot get to budge to get him to do a two-handed pose. So I'm really happy about the extra articulation at the elbows, like just the extra amount of movement. But it's kind of meaningless in a way when you can't get him to hold the lightsaber with two hands, because the hands are just so stiff and hard to flex. So that really bugs me quite a bit. All right, so on the left, we have the previously released A New Hope Vader. On the right, we have the Empire Strikes Back Vader. Now, of course, they're both Darth Vader, but like I said, there are a good number of differences from one to the other. It is interesting to me how the Empire Vader is ever so slightly taller than the New Hope Vader. And I think that has to do with the fact that the proportions are a little bit different, since the top half of the figure has been sculpted completely brand new. Physically, though, I think that Hasbro has the overall best proportioned Darth Vader figures in their Black Series line when you compare them to some of the Japanese companies, which just don't look quite as good. They're often too skinny or too small. There may be some issues with these particular Vaders, but in terms of the overall beefiness proportions, they're not oversized. They seem to be quite right. Looking at the two helmets side by side, if you look at the slope of the nose, you can see that the slope on the Empire Vader has more of a downward slope to it compared to the New Hope Vader, which is a little bit more horizontal ever so slightly. And the proportion of the eyes, let's call them the eye lenses, are a little bit smaller over on the Empire Vader than the New Hope Vader. Also, we have the differences in the texture between the domes. If you look at the domes side by side, they are a little bit different. There's more of a curvature to the Empire Vader right here around the top part of the dome than there is to the New Hope Vader. The chest boxes, you can see, are proportioned a little bit differently. The details are a little bit smaller on the Empire Vader. And you can also see that the chest plate is a bit different. This one has a little protrusion down here. It's absent on this figure. And then, like I said, the arms, the elbows, this is where you really notice some differences here. So you can see that on the back of the New Hope Vader. If you look at his elbows, you can see the joint right there. So yeah, you can get it to go unnaturally backwards like that. But the Empire Vader, that has been eliminated. So if you look at the comparison of the joint, you can go 90 degrees with the elbow, which is nice. But on the Empire Vader, you get a good deal more than that. So that is a really nice change to see. Like I said, unfortunately, while the hands on the previous release were pretty flexible, on the Empire Vader, they are almost impossible to move. Yeah, I could heat them up, but they shouldn't be this stiff to begin with. As far as the rest of the figure goes, like I mentioned, the gloves, they are quite different from one figure to the other. And then the belts are the same. The paint's a little bit different, but the belts are in fact the same. Codpiece is the same. And the legs are completely the same as well. So some really notable differences, some pretty nice improvements. For the most part, though, they are the same figure other than the elbows. But like I said, that's really hard to stomach because of how hard the wrists are to pose on this new figure. Like, I love the elbow movement. Those hands just don't want to open up, though. They are so stiff on this figure. Now, as far as the capes are concerned, and again, this is probably something that's not going to come through on camera very well, but like the size of the stitching on the Empire Vader is actually a little bit finer. Like, it's a smoother cape, if ever so slightly. I mean, it's essentially the same thing, but when you have it in hand and you feel them side by side, like, I mean, you can tell that the stitching is a lot smaller on this cape than on the previous New Hope version. It also has a little bit more flex to it. I find this to be a little stiffer on the New Hope Vader. The Empire one seems to have a little bit nicer of a drape because it is a softer cape overall. So that is pretty cool to see. The only thing we're still missing, and I don't think any company has ever done it on any Darth Vader, if you look at Empire Strikes Back, when you see him walking around on the Star Destroyer, you can see like a little bit of like a shiny, like a vinyl or plastic piece that goes along the hem on the bottom. And no action figure of Vader has ever gotten that detail. So this one still doesn't have it either. Here's a comparison with the carbonized Darth Vader from The Empire Strikes Back. Now, I've acquired most of the carbonized figures, but I've never opened any. I did open this particular Darth Vader, though, because, like I said, Darth Vader, love Darth Vader. He's my favorite character, and I just thought it might be a cool one for taking some toy photos with and playing with lighting, things like that. So both of these are the exact same sculpt. The carbonized Vader does feature the brand new Empire Strikes Back figure as its sculpt. So same thing, except with the carbonized version, obviously you get this carbonized paint scheme, which is kind of like midnight blue and like blue silver. And the cape material on this one is actually quite a bit stiffer than it is on the regular Darth Vader. Here's a comparison of Lord Vader along with his son, Luke Skywalker, and you can see Vader absolutely towers over Luke. And I think this is film accurate. It's just funny to see how they look side by side to one another. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. This is the Hasbro Star Wars The Black Series 40th anniversary for The Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader. Overall, you guys, I really like the figure. There truly is a lot to like here. I was a big fan of the New Hope Darth Vader, especially since that's my favorite costume as far as Darth Vader is concerned, which is basically very similar to the Rogue One costume. But of course, Darth Vader is Darth Vader. No matter what costume you're looking at from any of the Star Wars films, he's awesome. So this is no exception. Hasbro did some really nice improvements from this Vader compared to that previous Vader, many of which I didn't even expect. Namely, the proportions of the figure from the belt up have been tweaked just a little bit. The amount of bend he gets at the elbows has been increased significantly. And they didn't skimp by just repainting the previous figure. So that is hugely important here. It is a brand new helmet. It has some very nice movement, especially compared to that previous Vader when you're talking about the head movement. Now, unfortunately, the hands are very hard to flex open so that he can hold his lightsaber. I find that very disappointing. It really inhibits my ability to enjoy the figure, but it doesn't take away from how awesome the figure looks from a sculpting perspective, from a painting perspective, and from a proportions perspective. He looks really nice through and through. The lightsaber is a brand new sculpt. The legs still are a little bit loose, though, as we had with the previous Vader. Maybe not as bad, but I think that took a little bit of time to develop on the New Hope Vaders that I purchased previously. But despite those shortcomings, I'm finding a lot of things to like here. I think this is a really nicely done figure. It may even be the definitive version of Darth Vader as far as 6-inch action figures are concerned. So if you're a fan of Darth Vader, and who isn't, you need to own this figure. I mean, it's another version of Vader. And as far as I'm concerned, you really can't have too many Darth Vaders. Not only is he essential, but he's fun, and the costume changes and the differences between this figure and the previous one are something that I find to be quite exciting. So definitely check him out. All right, my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Will you be picking up this figure? Sound off down in the comments. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Subscribe to the Cantina Chatter podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Victoria's Cantina. Until next time, bye-bye.